so I hope you guys are ready to learn about my crazy ass family. Now, I'm pretty sure that if there is a official Guinness World Record for this, my family would definitely be the record holder for the most divorces ever in a single family. Because literally over 90% of my immediate family has had multiple divorces. And of course, I've covered this in past videos, but some people, they wanted like a trait diagram. They want me to map out my family. So here it goes. Get ready. This is as crazy as it gets. This is me right here in the middle. So when my mom married my dad, my mom was already divorced, and because of that, I have an older half-sister. And I've already covered the details. I'm not going to too much further detail. So my mom, she has been divorced 6 times. Yes, you heard that correctly. I'm not talking about relationships, not engagements. She actually got married. I'm talking about ceremony, honeymoon, signing the papers. Then she filed for divorce. By the way, you want to know something that's interesting? Every single divorce that's happened in my family was filed by the female side. I'm just saying, okay? And it is also true that between 70 to 80% of divorces worldwide are filed by women. And in terms of relationships, 80 to 90% of the time, it's the woman that ends the relationship. I'm just telling you guys a fact. So every single divorce, right? My mom, she married 6 times. She filed for all 6 divorces. And if you're wondering, have I tried to talk her out of it? Of course I have, but nothing ever works. And she just got a brand new boyfriend. Apparently, I heard this guy is 10 years younger than my mom. She's probably been on over 200 first dates. I told my mom, I told my sister, I told my aunts, I told them to stop dating. It's not working out, and you're just not marriage material. But people just can't take the truth. Nowadays, I think almost everybody's a hypocrite, and they say that we've had enough of the propaganda, we had enough of the lies of the media. We want to hear the truth. But when I give the truth to you guys can't take it. That's just the reality. Over 90% of the people in this world, they know that something is going wrong with their lives. But when you tell them the truth, they get 100% triggered. So here it goes, right? So my older half-sister, so she followed my mom's footsteps. She got divorced twice. Right now, she's in her 3rd marriage. I'm not sure how that marriage is going. Her 2nd ex-husband, she actually cheated on her 1st ex-husband with her 2nd ex-husband. And she ended up forcing him to commit suicide. Yes, he jumped off from the rooftop of a tall apartment. This happened in the province of Inner Mongolia. But then once again, despite all of that, she can still get married. Yes, the shortage of women in China, it is a massive crisis. It is extremely difficult for a Chinese man to find a date. That's why, in China, if you become a leftover woman, that is 100% your fault, because there are way more men versus women. You guys want to know something that is interesting? My grandparents, right? My grandparents' generation, nobody was divorced, not a single person, not a single living soul. And people asking me that, did they all go crazy? Did they try to kill each other? No. Of course, they had their fights, they had their issues. Listen, I'm 32 years old now. I have never, ever heard of a marriage that were a couple, let's say they got married at 23 or 25 or 27, and they stayed together and they died of old age. They were together for 50, 60, 70 years, and they've never, ever had a single fight or a single argument. That's not possible. I think you're living in a fantasy land. Of course, they had their rough patches. Of course, sometimes they had to take a break from each other, but they worked through all of their rough patches, and every single one of them, they got by just fine. They all died of old age, and nothing ever happened. But look at what the hell the previous generation did to this generation. The reason why the millennials and the Gen Z and eventually Gen Alpha, we have all kinds of issues, it's because the previous generation. It is because the silent generation, the boomers and the Gen X, they completely destroyed everything. They had the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of humanity. And in the generation that they grew up in, this is the same thing in the West, right? There was no divorces in the US and Canada, virtually none. And I think the millennials and Gen Zs can relate, right? Talk to your grandparents, talk to your great-grandparents if they're still around. For that generation, everybody stayed together, but the previous generation completely screwed everybody over. If you're wondering why I sound so fired up, look at what rampant divorces and the single motherhood and all the childhood drama you're putting out children. This is where you're gonna do to the next generation. This is why we're so messed up. One thing I want to point out, yes, dropping out of school will lead to generational poverty. Do you know why so many people today are dropping out of school? Yes, I once dropped out of school. I came back to college, then university. So I have gotten my college diploma, and I will be graduating from university as of December 16th. This is, by the way, this is all Chinese family members, okay? So I have a cousin. female cousin, 4 years younger. We actually grew up together. So her mom divorced 4 times once again. I don't know what the hell is wrong with people. Listen, I don't think divorce should be made illegal, but I think we need to change the laws on this. First of all, there cannot be any no-fault divorce. You cannot just walk into a marriage and say that, oh, I just don't feel it. There's no spark. I'm not happy, and then file for divorce. 100% BS. And also, if you get divorced once, that's it. Stop getting married. You guys are the issue. Everybody, all my aunts in my family, right? They get divorced. They think the grass is greener on the other side, and they get married again and again and again. Listen, stop doing that. This is like a cocaine addiction for these women. They're absolutely out of their mind. Listen, if you're divorced, okay, at least 50% of the responsibility for failing the marriage falls upon you. If you're perfectly 100% fine, you wouldn't be getting divorced. So if you already got divorced, what do you think the chances are of having another successful marriage? Virtually none. And my aunts, my mom, these people are just crazy. They keep on getting married and married and married. So her, my female cousin, by the way, she also dropped out of school, right? And then right now she's financially struggling, doesn't have any money. Well, I did mention, right? Dropping out of school will lead to generational poverty. That's why China, South Korea, Japan, they're having all kinds of issues because the divorce rate are just completely rampant. So her mom had 4 divorces. Her dad has 2 divorces. So she was the children from her dad's first marriage. And after the divorce, he got married again to another Chinese woman. Then basically he had another daughter. So his second wife became a baby mama because right after he had another daughter, he disappeared. Everybody thought he was dead. My uncle, this is my mom's younger brother. Nobody knew where the hell he went. Then he was found 8 years later. Turned out he was basically something drug related. I don't think he was the actual drug dealer. Maybe he was a help or something. Because in China, this is why China doesn't have a drug problem. Because if you're caught with drug trafficking, they put a bullet through your head. That's the end of you. And I 100% support that law. If they had this in America and Canada, Canada would not have a drug problem. So I think possibly the ringleader was executed. Was helping these people to smuggle drugs from southern China into Southeast Asia. He was caught. He was locked up for 8 years. So this guy, my uncle, right? Career criminal, drug dealers, 8 years in prison. And look at the result, right? My younger female cousin, 4 years younger than me, she dropped out of school. I have another cousin. This is a male cousin, 6 years older than me. He also dropped out of school. How interesting. Now, his parents, I'm not 100% sure. They might still be together. They might be divorced because I haven't been back to China in 8 years. So I don't know what's the situation. But look at this guy. Drops out of school at the age of 15. This is why I'm telling you, Black America, listen, dropping out of school means that either you will become a career criminal or you will live in generational poverty. That's the only 2 options. That's it. So what the hell did he do? He turned into a career criminal after dropping out of school. He became a gangster wannabe, became some manager at a nightclub. And one night he got into a fight with a rival gang. He pulled out a machete and stabbed someone in the rival gang members. He was locked up and his parents had to spend, basically they had to sell their home, they had to sell everything, all of their assets. They had to take out line of credit, they had to get loans from the bank, they had to borrow money from people. They were on their knees begging for other people to get money in order to post a bail, in order to bail him out. And even after getting out of jail, he never learned his lesson. He got basically scammed once again. I think he spent something crazy. It's like $1 million or $2 million on some sand factory. He ended up losing it all. I've heard now that he's possibly upwards of $2 to $3 million in debt. This is what happens when you drop out of school. And you guys think, oh, it's cool to walk around with your pants pulled down. You guys think it's cool to walk around with a machete. You guys think it's cool to hold a gun that's sideways. You guys think it's cool to not speak English properly. You guys think it's not cool to go to school. This is what happens, I'm telling you, when you drop out of school. Nothing good has ever come out of this. Now, you guys want to know something interesting? Why did I drop out of school? Why did my older half-sister drop out of school? Why did my younger female cousin, 4 years younger than me, why did she drop out of school? Why did my older cousin, 6 years older than me, why did he drop out of school? What is the common factor amongst all of these single mother homes? That's it. For example, let's say, your parents get divorced, things are not working out. Let's say if the father gets custody, yes, after divorce, the guy could be extremely depressed, right? He could have a lot of issues, right? But usually, the vast majority of the time, the man stays quiet, right? If you ask him about the situation, he just says that just wasn't meant to be, didn't work out, and that's it, I'm divorced. However, I've heard it from my aunts, my stepmom, her cousins, everybody, because everybody in my family in that generation is divorced. And when they come back from home, let's say after work, and when their kid comes back from school, they will complain and complain. And then many times when I'm back in China, it has made me completely suicidal. I've heard my mom, I've heard my aunts, I've heard my cousins, and I've heard my sister complain for 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, 18 hours a day. They say, oh my God, men are terrible. I want to choose the bear. I hate all men. Men are assholes. Men are raging alcoholics. I feel so abused. I've been exploited by the system. And obviously, they're all telling 100% propaganda. They're always telling one side of the story. And sometimes when they're telling me the details, and obviously their story starts to break down. And yes, I've confronted them about this. I said, well, according to your story, I think you are the problem. See, this is where everybody, not just women, men also, you also do this. You lose your mind, right? Even though sometimes you know you're 100% responsible for the failure of your relationship and marriage, but that you don't want to take any accountability. This is the number one issue we have in our society. That's why so many marriages and relationships are so toxic now, and people just don't want to own up to their own mistakes. When you tell them the truth, they can't take it. Yeah, every time I confronted my mom or my sister or my stepmom and her sister and their cousins when they're complaining, and obviously I don't just do this for fun, it's because sometimes we're sitting down having a conversation, they will start complaining about their divorces for 5-6 hours, and when I say something, it's 100% nuclear. I've literally been nuked by the female members in my family. I'm talking about Hiroshima, I'm talking about Nagasaki, I'm talking about the Fukushima nuclear plant meltdown, I'm talking about Chernobyl, I'm talking about the elephant's foot, I'm talking about 90 seconds on the roof. Listen guys, okay, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, because unfortunately roughly 50% of the marriages end in divorce now, especially if you're being raised by a single mother, and I'm sure many of you guys can relate. They will complain and complain and complain, and once again, it's not just women, sometimes men complain also. Do not say anything, even if it's your direct family member. Just let them rot away. Sometimes if you have to, cut them out of your life, because if you say anything, they will go absolutely nuclear. This has happened to me many times by my family members. After a while, I have completely given up. Listen, this is to everybody out there in this world. The number one problem in your life is you. Remember that. You are the number one problem in your life. Stop pointing the finger at other people. If more people did this, 90% of the problems in the world would disappear overnight. Unfortunately, honestly, I think we need to bring back arranged marriage, because the reason why my grandparents' generation, there was 0 divorces, because all of the marriages in that generation, they were all 100% arranged. I think only the father of the daughter should be able to choose his future son-in-law, because those were the best marriages and none of them were toxic. Yes, they had issues, but my grandparents, right, they were all able to work through their rough patches, and they all died of old age. Nothing ever happened. Nowadays, we have a free dating, right? Women get to choose whatever man they want to, and look at the choices you're making. You ladies are choosing absolute terrible men to marry and procreate with, and this is why we have the destruction of the nuclear family. Let's go over to my stepmom's side. So my stepmom, I did mention I came to Canada in 2005. So this is with my stepmom's sister. Her family is very complicated also, just like my family. I think she might be a full or half sister, I don't know. And she has 5 other female cousins, I do know that. I met most of them. All 7 of them are female. How crazy is that? They've combined for roughly, I would say, 14 divorces. Okay, I don't know the exact number. It could be 13, it could be 17. We'll just say they averaged 2 each. How crazy is that? Once again, ladies, okay, if things are not working out, if you're divorced, stop dating. That's it. Stop getting married and divorced and married and divorced and married and divorced. Because you know who really suffers? Your children. Because they get torn up in all this insane family drama. That's why so many children that's being raised in a divorced household, or they're being raised by a single mother, they will end up dropping out of school. Because every single day when they come back home from school, they have to put up with all this BS drama. They have to put up with all the beef, all the complaining. They say that, oh my God, you stupid bitch, I'm gonna kill you. That's I cannot do it. Every single freaking day. That's why I have to put up with all of my life, every single freaking day. Insane family drama. And honestly, I think our laws need to be changed, because I'm pretty sure this is 100% child abuse. No children in the world should be born into this kind of a family. Yes, I can sympathize. Yes, I can understand. Sometimes, when the marriage goes into the divorce, sometimes it's 100% the fault of just one spouse. I can understand, ladies, okay, sometimes it's 100% your ex-husband's fault for your divorce. But just because you suffered physically and emotionally, just because you had a rough patch, just because you had a divorce, just because this has scarred you for life, it does not make it okay for you to launch your pain at other people. It is not an excuse for you to make other people to suffer with you, because they had nothing to do with it. I had nothing to do with the over 30 divorces that has happened in my family. My dad and mom, they were already divorced. My mom, she was already in her second marriage when she married my dad, and they divorced when I was a baby. I had 100% nothing to do with it. In fact, I became a victim. I grew up without a father. I grew up without a mother. So I came to Canada, right, with my stepmom's half-sister, possibly full sister. Right after she came to Canada, she had an affair with a Korean guy. He was running a gas station, and he was so much older than her. Absolutely disgusting. At the time, the minimum wage in Canada was $10 an hour Canadian, and he was paying her $15 an hour Canadian cash, and they even signed a contract. The reason why she was getting paid $15 an hour cash was so that she would suck his 3 times a week. No, I'm serious. They had a written contract. And by the way, this is when she first came to Canada. So this Korean guy, he was married. His wife's name was Grace. Hell, I'll just say their name. I don't care, because these people are old now. He must be over 70 now. His English name was Billy. His last name was Bing. Yes, Billy Bing. And he had an affair with my stepmom's half-sister right after they came to Canada. And he was married to a Korean woman at the time. Her name was Grace. And my stepmom's half-sister, the one I came to Canada with, she was also married at the time. And they got caught. So the Grace, so this Korean guy's Korean wife, he found out about the affair, and he actually hired a private Korean investigator, and they actually followed them into the restaurant and into the motel. I heard he took pictures and videos and everything. And I heard at the time, keep in mind this was back in 2005 to 2006, they had to go to family court. I think they were ordered to pay $100,000 in damages for their infidelity. So this is how crazy my family is. Also, this is my stepmom's half-sister. Her first husband, the Chinese guy, he's crazy too. So he has 2 divorces. So obviously his wife cheated on him with a Korean guy. So he went to the Greater Toronto area. He impregnated some Chinese woman, and she gave birth to a daughter. They never got married. And right after she gave birth to the daughter, he disappeared for many, many years. Nobody could find him. So this woman, who obviously became a single baby mama, he threatened my stepmom's half-sister for many, many years, threatening to kill everybody in her family. He was writing her letters every single day, because obviously she got impregnated and she became a single baby mama, and the father disappeared. And they found this guy many, many years later in Windsor, Ontario. If you're wondering where Windsor, Ontario is, it's right beside the city of Detroit. That's where Windsor is. Absolute insanity. This is the family I grew up in. This is why so many of my cousins are 100% batshit crazy. So this is probably one of the richest members of my family, one of my stepmom's cousins. So she's a high school principal. By the way, you guys want to know the difference between principal and principal? This is like the principal, right? I have my own principles in life, right? Don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs, don't gamble. This is like your principles. Be a good person. And this is principal. This is like your high school principal. This is how you can tell. This is your pal. So obviously she's divorced. I mentioned her before. She has her own $5,000 toilet back at home. And yes, I've heard many, many stories when she goes out shopping. This is the issue, right? The reason why, these 7 women have so many divorces, because most of these 7 women, they're very well educated and they're quite wealthy themselves. Listen, in every single relationship or marriage, if it's the woman that's wearing the pants, listen, that marriage has a 95% chance of ending up in a divorce. Women cannot be long-term providers financially for the man. It doesn't matter what you say about inequality, about wage gap. Men have to be the breadwinner in every single relationship, because this is what happens when women are the breadwinner. And I've heard stories when she goes to shopping, right? She'll ask, how much is this jacket? And the vendor will say, oh, this is $100. And she'll say something like, oh my God, look at you poor peasants. That is so disgusting. How could you guys wear something so cheap? Oh my God, I cannot be around with these filthy, low-class human beings. I need to buy myself a $1,000 jacket. I need $2,000 high heels. I need a $5,000 toilet. I need a $75,000 Mercedes. That's how she talks every single day, because she's extremely educated. I don't know, she might have a PhD. She has at least a master's degree. Now, of course, she's a high school principal, so she's got lots of money, or she she wouldn't be getting a $5,000 toilet. But every time she walks down the street, she'll say something like, oh my God, how can these people be so broke? It's so embarrassing. How can they live like that? Oh my God, this is total humiliation. I can only surround myself with ultra wealthy, ultra successful, ultra educated people. This is what happens. I'm serious. When a woman achieves a certain social and economic status, they will look down on everybody, both men and women below them. Because if a man is extremely successful, if he, let's say, became a tenured professor at New York University, if he's making $250,000 a year, he has no problem marrying a girl that works at McDonald's, as long as she's decent looking, as long as she's not a hoe, as long as she's feminine, and he will walk into that McDonald's one day, he can say that, you know what, I want you to be my wife. And here's the key to our car. Here's the key to our family van. Here's the key to our summer cottage home. And here's the key to our house. He has no problem of walking into that McDonald's and telling her to quit her job and wifing her up. A woman will never ever do that. A woman who is a tenured professor at New York University making $200,000 a year, she will never ever look at a guy who's making less than $250,000 a year. You see, as a man's income level goes up, his dating pool expands. But as a woman's income level goes up, her dating pool shrinks because the women are selfish financially. I'm sorry to say, this is why every single member of my stepmom's family, right? 7 of them combined for roughly 14 divorces. It's because, when women achieves a certain status, because they have money, they have status, they begin to look down, they begin to cuck their husband, they begin to shame and humiliate their husband. They say that, look at you, you're not educated. I have a master's degree. You only have an undergraduate degree, so I'm better than you. I'm making $150,000 a year. You only make $75,000, so I'm better than you. So they will shame and humiliate their husband every single day for the rest of their lives. That's why in relationships and marriages where when the woman's the breadwinner, that relationship is guaranteed to be toxic, it's guaranteed to be abusive, and it's guaranteed to end in disaster. This is why a couple weeks ago I mentioned for a man to secure a high value woman, listen guys, you have to work extremely hard. You have to make as much money as you can. That is the only way. You have to become the breadwinner, because when the woman's the breadwinner, you will be shamed, you'll be cucked, you'll be abused, and the relationship is going to end in disaster. And also, yes, I've just did a quick math. I've tried to count all the divorces I know within my family. And yes, this is the number I came up with. 34 divorces in my family. I don't think anybody can top that, right? My mom leading the way with 6, and I have an aunt. She's second place with 4 divorces. Honestly, in the years I've lived in Canada, the highest number I've heard is 3. I haven't even heard of 4 divorces, but in my family, look at all the divorces that happened. And who ultimately suffers from all of this is the next generation. And if you're wondering, why am I so obsessed with Black America? Because I looked up every single study, I watched full documentaries, I read books, I read every single report. Because obviously I thought about with all of this destruction that's happening in my family, there has to be severe consequences, especially on the next generation, because nobody can actually think this is normal, right? You think that children growing up in this kind of environment, you got gangsters, you got drug dealers, you got school dropouts, you got people committing infidelity, and you think that children growing up in this kind of environment is going to be fine? Absolutely not. So when I looked up all of these studies, what are the effects, right? If one of your family members is a drug dealer, what happens when you grow up without parents? What happens when you're raised by a single mother? What happens if there's 10 divorces in your family? And almost every single report, almost every single research, almost every single study pointed to this common denominator, Black America, right? That's where my obsession began. If you're wondering why am I so obsessed with Black people, because I've been researching these topics for the last 20 plus years. Because every single member of my family is batshit crazy. This is one of the many contributing factors to why there's so much issue in Black America. No civilization can survive without the nuclear family. And yes, if your family tree looks anything similar to mine, second ex-husband committed suicide, raging alcoholic, gangster wannabe, career criminal, drug dealer, school dropout, and 14 divorces between 7 women. If your family tree looks anything similar to that, you're going to be 100% screwed. And if, let's say, the majority of the family in society, if their family tree also looks like this, let's say 70 to 80% of the family, that civilization is going to end. That's what happened to Black America. You have the complete destruction of the Black family. Just one final note. My grandmother, the most important person in my life, I lost her 2.5 years ago. She died at the age of 82. And I did mention I grew up without a father. I grew up without a mother. I was raised solely by my grandmother. You guys want to know something? Ultimately, the consequences of all of this is the death of community. It's the death of communal life everywhere around. Because my grandmother, she obviously, way back in the day, people got married very young. She got married at the age of 18. By the time she was 24, she was already a mother of 3. So think about it like this. The reason why, right, so many young modern women, they have all kinds of issues, including young men, right? It is ultimately because the death of the communal life. Because back in my grandmother's generation, it was very normal for a woman to be married at 18. It's normal for a woman to be a mother of 3 at the age of 24. What does this mean? By the time she's 40, all of her children was grown. Then once her children are grown, my grandmother, she had more time on her own, so she could focus on helping the next generation of young women. This is the one thing that this generation simply does not have anymore, right? So back in our mother's generation, all my aunties, right, they all had this benefit because their parents, by the time they were 40, all of their children were grown. So they can teach the next generation of young women on how to become a good wife, on how to be a good mother, how they can support their children, and how they can support their husband. But now, look at this. The previous generation, my mom, right, my stepmom, my aunts, everybody's divorced. So this generation of young women, they don't have any female role models to look up to anymore. They're struggling in marriage. If they're struggling in a relationship, they don't know what to look for. They don't know how to date. There's no guidance for them. There's nobody to support them because everybody's divorced, because everybody's in a toxic relationship. So this is one of the many contributing factors to the decline in our society. It's the death of communal life because the previous generation, they had a 40-year-old women that were mothers of 3, that were happily married in a stable relationship, and they could provide guidance to the next generation of young women. But that simply does not exist anymore. I'm sorry to say, guys, but I think our world is going to come to an end. It's not going to come to an end because of nuclear weapons. It's not going to come to an end because of World War III. But the destruction of the nuclear family, that is what's going to ultimately destroy the human civilization.
Understand myself, I don't really understand, need help. I don't wanna be left on the shelf.